With the rise of right-wing videos on TikTok, I'm reminded of a bygone era of YouTube. The days of triggered SJW compilation number 785 are upon us once more. But why? How has the alt-right created this blend of entertainment and politics that have constructed the so-called alt-right pipeline? To understand this, we need to break down how the right constructs their arguments, how it differs from left-wing content creators in the same spaces, why infighting is so much more prevalent amongst the left, and what needs to change, if anything at all. Firstly, many right-wing content creators on a variety of platforms follow one of a few very simple templates. A. Make subjective claims with absolutely no basis. Liberals are cringe. Prove me wrong. You can't argue against them because it's just not a factual statement. There is no basis from you to construct your argument, and going against them just make you look like an idiot. And secondly, quoting statistics with no explanation to prove their point, because statistics can be easily manipulated, and on top of that, they can be blatantly false. Did you know that 85% of statistics are made up on the spot? Was it 95? Or 100? 110? 120? You see the point. Or C. Stick to elementary insults just for the entertainment factor. Left wing, destroyed. This blend of these three, or maybe just sticking to one, has created a style of content that is very easy to replicate, very entertaining, and easy to understand, compared to a variety of left-wing content creators that require understanding a vast amount of theory to comprehend, understanding how the system disproportionately affects various people, and without this understanding, it simply doesn't make sense. And to the beginner, to the uninitiated, trying to educate themselves, well, I mean, it's extremely daunting.
Peace up, A-Town down. Okay.
The TikTok that I've just shown, or at least I should have just shown, is a perfect example. You can't really argue against it because it isn't saying anything of worth. It's verbose, it's irrelevant, and the few statements that it makes that can be quantified are just incorrect. How do you quantify freedom and diversity and prosperity? The US leading in those cases? It's just blatantly incorrect. If we want to quantify prosperity, I guess the best place to start would be the Legatum Prosperity Index, which I should show the results about now. I'll also link the study from 2020. It's an annual study that seeks to quantify global prosperity, and the US ranks 18th on the list. As a matter of fact, the only two categories it makes top 5 are enterprise conditions, which are not necessarily a good thing, because essentially it's how do government regulations impact a business's ability to grow. Obviously, having no safeguards and no consumer protections or lack thereof, or in this case a very, very low federal minimum wage, allows businesses to grow. Is it a good thing? Not necessarily. And secondly, market infrastructure, which it doesn't even rank first in. And secondly, while the US does boast an impressive diversity index, systematically and disproportionately negatively impacting your natives and other immigrants isn't a feat you should be proud of.
Honey, 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 you're acting like a mask gonna fix all your problems. Newsflash, it's not. If it were to fix all of our problems, cause trust me, I'm so over online school too, we'd all just be in person, in school, wearing masks.
This second one is another great example. He points out that, well, masks aren't fully effective, which, yes, it's correct, and that only a small minority of people refuse to wear them, which is incorrect. Firstly, this is blatantly disingenuous, as, well, time and time again we see countless instances of, especially in America, people refusing to wear their masks, people going to protests and demonstrations for the lockdown conditions, not wearing a mask and saying it's their God-given right, or pretending to have some sort of debilitating illness they just tragically got that prevents them from wearing such a mask. Furthermore, he uses the phrase democratic leadership fearmongering as a scapegoat and an explanation as to why the US is affected so heavily with COVID cases. Here, where I am in New Zealand, we went through a few weeks of lockdown and we wear our masks in public. We have 0 cases right now, but people still wear their masks on public transport and such. When we recently did get a few cases from overseas, the elevated pandemic restrictions lasted for 3 days. Wow, that's so long. How will we live? I don't know. We're back to 0 cases. His argument isn't a blatant lie because, well, you don't really look the hero if you're just blatantly lying, but it's a diversion. Something that those who have beliefs that are easily proven wrong have become adept at recently. Simply put, he starts with the fact masks aren't the be-all and end-all. Wearing masks won't just instantly eradicate COVID. That is correct, and no one is saying they will, but they do help. He then skirts around a few incorrect claims, briefly saying that a vast majority of Americans prone against masks wear them out of respect, which we see is blatantly incorrect. He implies that people do follow the lockdown regulations when they simply do not. And then he focuses on the idea that Democratic leaders are to blame for the US's terrible handling of the pandemic. This focuses your attention on the harder to prove point. It's a subjective claim. Democratic leaders fearmonger. You can argue that it's justified, how much they have heightened people's awareness of COVID, but you can't really quantify whether there's an acceptable amount of fear or precaution. It's very hard to argue against, and this is 100% done intentionally. Unless you meticulously break down his argument and see how it's diverted, simply put, this is very, very difficult to argue against. Because it's opinion. It's subjective. It doesn't really say anything. It's just verbose. Furthermore, the alt-right loves to prey on the uninformed. Look at Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, Milo Yiannopoulos. This trio often interact with universities or university students early into, if not before their careers have begun, with a plethora of them simply having no discourse in politics or debate, and they showcase the so-called hypocrisy of the left. These 3 are talented speakers and debaters, despite the vastly incorrect statements that they seek to defend. However, by debating with people who don't have vast experience in debate and speech and politics as they do, they come off looking extremely intelligent. Furthermore, due to their lack of needing to be politically correct, as they would put it, very often we see these arguments laden with insults, or simply videos highlighting and laughing at someone's lack of knowledge, demeaning them when they don't understand the matter. This is the entertainment part. This is what makes these videos so successful. Because why would you watch someone having a civilized debate when you can watch someone making fun of someone? It's, dare I say, human. People love seeing the misfortune of others, unfortunately, but that's just how it is. And simply put, younger children with access to the internet tend to be increasingly radicalized by these videos by the right, as they don't need to be well versed in theory or understand people's struggles to be accepted by this community. Making jokes about a minority group, or dark humor as they would have you believe, is more often than not all that's required to be part of these spaces, which segues onto my last and final point. Infighting. The left has a large amount of infighting. As various political ideologies and identities clash with each other, oftentimes more so than they do with the right. This is as everyone draws a proverbial line below them. Each person views what they do to be the border of acceptability. Tread beyond that limit and you're intolerant, you're bigoted, you're unacceptable. While this may be true, many are liberal being left-wing, but supporting racist or other bigoted policies are justifiably ostracized by those who understand the negative impact of their actions. Such a line drawing is rare in the light. Allow me to explain and prove it. Often we see far-right extremist members accepted by more moderate members. The notion that we should be friends regardless of political affiliation is a notion that is pushed by those who aren't directly affected by these politics. We see even left-wing, albeit moderates, associate with those with increasingly bigoted views, while they may not be xenophobic or misogynistic or whatever. They're more than happy to be complicit with their friends' actions as they seek to avoid strife. They don't wish to inconvenience themselves. And evidence of this is at a variety of far-right gatherings and demonstrations. As shown in the Capitol Hill riot, or at the Unite the Right rally, we see fascist flags, slogans, and literal Klansmen parading around in broad daylight, happily intermingling with each other, not so extreme members. So how do we fix this? I don't think the right way to go about this is to compromise on our core beliefs. Absolutely not. If someone is bigoted, if someone is unacceptable, if someone is silencing others or being dangerous or violent, you should absolutely call it out. You should put a stop to it. But if you see someone genuinely trying to learn, and you do have the time and resilience to do so, why not give it a shot? And regarding content, the left is getting better. Beat them at their own game. Stop the multi-page long wall of text explaining events. Short-form content is king. Make your joke short and quaint and watch it succeed. Thank you.